All right, so let's get started with our completely blank script here. We have our same page, test.html, and that is loaded, or was loaded. That is loaded here. So this is just our copy of the syllabus. And hopefully by the end of class, we will have a really good sense of how to navigate through the contents of this page in a way that you can translate to having the extension that you're going to write speak the contents of the page. All right, so one of the cool things that jQuery will do pretty much for free for us is it will construct these big lists of DOM elements, right? So when you've done things like in the past, you might have done something like this $, and then some sort of, this is called a selector. This thing in the middle here is called a selector. And this is some way to let jQuery know what should it build its list out of. In this case, it's just a tag name, so it's body. And usually there's only one body tag, body element in a page. And so that would just give you one thing. But if you change this to div, it would select all the div elements on the page. If you changed it to something like dot big red border, as we have seen in prior classes, this will select all of the elements on the page that have the class big red border. So this little dot means class, right? So that's just if I had an element that looked like this, big red border, it would be among the elements selected by this big red border, dot big red border. Another little fancy trick, right? So I can do a hash. If I do a hash, then that's anything with the ID big red border. You assume there's only one on the page. It's supposed to be only one on the page. Anyway, so this is the selector. There's also some kind of fancy selectors we can use that are defined by jQuery. So if I do the star selector, for instance, that's just everything on the page. So every element gets selected by a star. So if I do this, we could try. I don't know what this will actually do. I'll try console, our handy dandy console.log. Let's see what happens if I select everything on the page and then log it out to the console. So we can go to this page and we can look at the console. This is our console. And if I have saved that and I refresh it, then I should get this giant object here. This is the jQuery object that is returned. It's like this big list of elements that jQuery constructs for you that has every single element on the page, right? So yeah, we have lots of things, 211 elements. So all the kind of things that even outside of the body, even the HTML element is there, title, script, style, and then we have our body, we have divs, unordered lists, that must be the unordered list, link, all these different things. And what's interesting about this and what's relevant to us is that jQuery returns all of these things in the same order that we were attempting to construct with our fancy traversal through the tree. In effect, it's doing, or the browser plus it is doing something very similar to what we were doing. But working with these lists might be a little bit more straightforward. And I think that's probably the way to go with the assignment. So now reading the page is really just traversing through this list. And a list is just one-dimensional thing. So you don't have to worry about the kind of weird tree data structure. You just got this one-dimensional list of stuff. And it's in the order that you would have gotten to anyway if you had done the depth first pre-order traversal of the tree. But you don't have to do that work, right? So now the decision of how to navigate through this list is really just how to navigate through this, or how to navigate through the page is really just how to navigate through this one-dimensional list. The challenge with this, there's two challenges really with this, and I mentioned this now in the assignment, the updated assignment, but the two challenges with this are, one, that for kind of more complicated pages, you might pay a performance hit for this, because you're essentially getting everything back, whereas if you were just making kind of small movements through the DOM, you're not doing nearly as much work. So it's sort of a performance hit. And then the other thing that we're doing is, well, what we might do in order to not pay that quite as much of a performance hit is we might not constantly regenerate this list, right? So we might keep it around, which is a completely reasonable thing to do. But now we're in the state that many kind of older screen readers were in, which is we essentially have an off-screen model, right? So something that we're working with to read the content and allow the user to interact with the content may or may not directly map onto the current state of the page. And so there's this little bit of a trade-off between performance and the fact that we have like this off-screen model. And I think if you were really to build a web-based screen reader, you wouldn't do this. You would instead do more like kind of the live traversal of the DOM. But I think we're going to do this because it's going to be pretty reasonable, and for the pages that we're working with, they're not that big, and you can get a lot of the experience, most of the learning goals you would have transfer to this setting, and it's a lot more straightforward. So we're going to do this, and don't worry, just because we're doing this does not mean it's suddenly easy. It's still really interesting and hard. I think you'll be able to do it, but it's taking away that one bit of annoying complexity. But don't worry, there's plenty left. Okay, so we have this now list of all of the elements on the page. Let's see. Let's go back to the code here. So one thing we could do is to start navigating through this list, right? So if we wanted to, say, visit all of the nodes in this order, we could kind of take something that we did last class, right? And we could add a border around all of these things in order and see if that works like we would expect. So we could, of course, just add class, and I think it was just big red border, and I think it's blue, or I'm not really sure. Didn't we turn it to blue even though it's called? Yeah, it's a big red border that is now blue, but all right, so we could do this, right? So if we add this class to all of the elements, right, that will do this. Kind of a way to visualize you kind of see the tree structure here, right? Anyway, so these, every time there's a blue border, then that's one element in the tree. It might be a little more interesting to do this kind of sequentially, right? So we might instead do what we did last time, which was if we say keep our list somewhere, keep our list, let's say all elements. We'll start that at null, but once the page is loaded and all those elements are available, we can say all elements equals this. All right, and then we want to go through this list, but it's kind of weird because I think we want to do this periodically, every few milliseconds or something, go through another element. So we learned about this set interval last time, right, where you can essentially call something every so many milliseconds. So I'm going to call this a lot of these, so I'm going to call these every maybe 500 milliseconds, so half a second. And every half a second, we're going to add this class to something. But what are we going to add this class to? Well, we have all our elements. We kind of need some way to refer to them. They're in a list. They, they're essentially an array. So we could start out maybe at 0. So if I have what's the current node, current element or current node that I'm at. Probably want to do that here too. Okay, so a current element. I'm going to keep track of like where I am, and I have my list, and I have my current element. And probably every time, it's kind of like a loop, right? We could do this in a loop, but the problem if we just did this in a normal loop and just loop through all the elements, it would look just like the page we just saw, because the browser would just like go all the way through that loop, just rush through that loop, add a border around everything, and either if we kept the border on each thing as we did it, then we would never see it, or we would see all of them, or if we added it and then removed it, then we wouldn't see any of them. So what we're kind of doing with this set interval is we're going to go through a loop, but that loop is going to basically pause every half a second. And we could even, I don't think we can do this in JavaScript, but if JavaScript had like a sleep command, we could just write a loop that says basically add the class to whatever the element is at the current element, sleep for half a second, remove it, and then go through the next iteration of the loop, move on to the next element, and add the class, sleep, remove it. Add the class, sleep, remove it. And we could just do that. Instead, we have this kind of event-based model where every half a second, the browser will tell us, hey, run the next thing you want to run every half a second. And it's up to us to kind of figure out how to turn that into walking through the list. So when we call, when we call this, we need to find out we have the current element. I'm gonna call this like current element index. I think that's more correct. So if we have current element, so we want to take our list, our all elements list, and essentially get out the current element index. Let's forget this for right now. Let's just see what we have here. See if this does console.log, current element. All right, so this should walk us through the list. And of course, at the end of once we get past like oh wait, I forgot something. What did I forget? Yeah, I gotta change. Okay, yeah. So I gotta increment this at the end, right? So that next time I get to the next one. Okay, so this should at this point walk us through on the console anyway. Yeah. So this is just the elements of the list kind of being doled out gradually to us on the console. Okay, so that's kind of cool, but not really that interesting. All right, so what we really want to do then is we have the current element, so why don't we just do the adding the class to it. All right, so I have my element. I'm going to add class. One of the tricks from the last assignment was you kind of need to deal with the ones that already have it, and an easy way to do that is big red border. So select all the elements that already have this class. It's probably just the one, but easy way to do this, and remove that class from them. All right, so we kind of resetting everything, and then we're adding it to the new one. We're still incrementing. As far as I know, this should work. We'll see if there's any problems when I try to run it. All right, I think it's going to work. So I don't even need the console to give me debugging. It's a little bit weird because now it's like adding classes to like meta tags and head tags and stuff. But cool, look at that! Wow. Where'd it go? Anyway, so it'll keep going. At some point, it will crash because we'll hit the end of that array when there's no more things for it to do. Fortunately, JavaScript is very good about failing either silently or not really breaking things when it does that. But it'll take a while to get there. All right, so we already have kind of a way to walk through the page. This isn't quite what you want to do for your assignment, though, right? So you still have an event, but the event is a little bit different. The event is not a timer. The event is essentially when the last thing that you should have read got done reading, then move on to the next thing, right? And so you don't even need to wait. Like a bunch of these elements they don't say anything, right? They just are there for structure or other stuff. So you wouldn't even need to wait for them. You would essentially, the way I could imagine doing it, if we just make a function read from beginning, let's say read from beginning, and we probably when we do that, we might want to like refresh all this stuff. You could just do this at the beginning, right? This is what the older screen readers would do. They would basically, at the time that the page load, they'd take a snapshot of everything, and then everything from that point on was just from that snapshot. You could do that. That's actually probably fine, but for this assignment. But let's refresh it here, and then we're going to kind of combine modes, right? Where we're gonna not, because some of these elements don't say anything, we're going to skip past those elements, right? So we're going to kind of loop through while, might change this, but while, let's get the current, okay. Let me see. We kind of want to get the current element again, right? So we have the current element equal same thing as we have up here, all elements, right? So this is the current element, and then we kind of want to know, like, does it speak? Does it say something for this current element? You have to figure out what that means, right? But some elements speak, some of them don't. Some of them don't have text in them themselves, but they do have something that they say, like if you go to a heading tag itself doesn't exactly speak, right? It's just an H1, you say heading, right? And then the content within it speaks. You could handle that in different ways, but that's kind of the gist. A link may not speak itself, but a link you do say link for, and then whatever's inside the link. All right, so does it speak? So I almost want to do like a do while. I don't usually do while loops, but let's do while not. All right. Let's see. So so I want to increment this, but I don't. No, I think I do. Yeah, okay. I want to increment this. Wait, I don't want to increment it there. Yeah, okay, I do. Actually, I do want to increment. Okay, so I think this is a reasonable way to go through. You're basically going through this list and you want to stop when you find something that speaks, right? So why don't we find something that we know for sure speaks? We'll implement this function. You have to fill it out a little more. But function, does it speak? We're going to want to get an element here, and one thing we know. What do we know for sure? For sure, or might speak. Okay, so why don't we say if dot tag name. Okay, I'm going to change my mind and say that links do speak. Change this in different ways, but tag name dot or equals a, then return true, and let's have a default here, which is return false. All right, so let's for the moment comment out this. Actually, maybe we should just comment out the whole thing here. I want that there because I think it's a good, at least a reasonable thing to reference, but let's just read from the beginning here. And after we read from the beginning, all right, I'm gonna make a speak function. Speak me. I wish I could put an exclamation point, but speak me current element. And if we define that as a function, we're not going to speak it right now, but we'll say speak me, and we will log out to the console the element. Okay, so does that all make sense? When the document loads, we're going to call this function read from beginning. Read from beginning is going to construct this big list of all the elements on the page. It's going to reset this index to 0, so we're at the start. It's going to kind of walk through that list, looking at each current element, and it's going to stop when it finds. It's going to keep going as long as the elements don't say anything, and then it's going to stop when they do say something, because then it has to speak them. Our does it speak function right now is really just looking at the tag name. It's just at the tag name, and if it's a link, which is just an A, then it will return true, and otherwise it returns false. So we should stop on the first link, and when it stops, it should speak. And when it's by speaking right now, all it does is just log it out to the console. So we can see if that will work. All right, so let's bring up our console again. Oh no, does it speak? It's not defined. Read from beginning. Does it speak? Oh, I think I messed up capitalization. Okay. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I think we have an endless loop. You can tell because the whole page is locked up. No. No. Okay. You would think there'd be an easier way to do this, but the whole browser dies when that happens. So just kill the page. Oh no, I just did it again. Okay. Gotta fix it before. Okay. Let's see. How about if current element index greater than 100, because we know it's less than that. We'll break, so we'll just jump out of the loop regardless. Okay, so what did we do? Why is it not? Oh, I know why. No, I don't know why. Okay, anyway, let's see what happens. Let's see if this works. Okay, so that worked because it probably just ended on the 100th thing. I wonder, it could be that that it's actually a lowercase a or something. Let's see what this is. So console log these tag names as they come through. Undefined. Oh, did I get the? Okay. Let's just log out the element. I thought they all had. Oh, I got to get to the zeroth one. I see. Tricky. Because I actually have to get down to the node, not the jQuery wrapper on it. Okay. All right. So that's kind of everything. Like I said, everything that jQuery does is a list. And so even when you only have one thing, you kind of have to pretend like it's a list. Well, I mean, it is a list, so access the 0 thing. Let's try that. Okay, so now we have our tag name. All right, there we go. Okay, so not only did it not crash, but we went through all these things, these things that don't matter. We got down to our first link, right? And it printed that out. So if we go back to our if we go back to our assignment page here, we can even now make it say that thing. Let's go ahead and make it just say that thing. I'm just copying and pasting the speak. Oh, wait a second. It's got to be, we're missing one piece, which is how do we tell it what we want it to say? So let's go ahead and tell it what we want it to say. Forget what is it just text or something? Let's look up on the. Okay, so speech synthesis. Utterance. Oh yeah, I see. We just passed it into synthesis. Well, we don't have the IC. We don't have the. Oh, the U. The U is the. Okay. I think we just put it here. Let's see if we can do a test. Let's do a test. Of course, we won't know what's broken. Just as usual, we won't know what's broken if it's broken. And we'll turn off that alert. Okay. So now instead of when this all works perfectly, it's just going to say test. Did it say test? I don't know. Let's try it one more time. Yeah. Okay, so now it thinks I can use the analog. The amazing things about this projector system is that, like, even if you do it a lot, like I do. Okay.
Test.
Okay. Woohoo! It actually worked. That's good. So now we don't want to say test, right? We want to say something about what this element has in it. So we could just say text. Forget if that's I think it's a method. Okay, so if we do this, it should convert that element to text, which is, it should take whatever the anchor text is. So that's the text like in between the beginning and end tag for the link, and it should read that out instead. So let's see if it did that.
Home.
Wow. That's amazing. We have read something on this page.
Home. Home.
It's great. Okay. All right. Anyway, so now we have that. So we went through this whole kind of loop here. Read from the beginning. It's doing this like this searching through the elements, find something that speaks according to our very amazing rule here. It then when it finds that thing, sends it to actually be spoken, right? One final thing we need to do is, okay, so now it said one thing, but how do we get it to say the rest of the things, right? And for that, we're gonna use this handy event, which is basically once it's done speaking, it will call whatever we tell it to call as the on-end, in this on-end property, right? So there's a function here. Right now it's just an alert, but we could call it, say, basically go find the next one, right? You've done this, we've read it, go find the next one. So if we do that, we don't have a function called find the next one, but I'm gonna say, what if we did have a function called find the next one? All right, find the next one. So let's make that function. And really what we were doing up here in our read from the beginning, find the next one, really that some of this stuff is really finding the next one. It's just that, read from the beginning sets us back to 0. So I'm gonna take, in fact, I think all of this is basically find the next one, right? Find the next one, find the next one. So I'm gonna, maybe I'll even start putting comments on this. So like, what does this do? Finds and reads the next node, starting from the current position here. All right. So let's first just make sure we didn't break it, right? Because I moved some stuff around. It should do exactly the same thing.
Home.
Okay. And now the thing that we're gonna, oh wait, it didn't. It should have actually kept going, right? Because I already. Okay, so let's see. Let's see.
Home.
I like that it's reading to me still. Find the next one. So this should be. So okay, so I don't know where it's breaking. So let's see. I think it's only calling this once. That's my guess, but I don't know why that is. Console.log. Finding next one, and we could be much fancier debuggers, but one of my intro programming instructors was Brian Kernighan, who's he more or less invented C and a bunch of other cool stuff. And he said that he still used print line, print statements mostly to debug. So I feel, you know what, maybe I should just do that. Yeah. Yeah, well, so I thought that's what was happening here, right? So when it's done speaking home, this event should be triggered, and then it should call the next one. All right, so I'm gonna say just event, on end event triggered. All right, let's just see if that gives us any information or allows us to start thinking through what.
Home.
Okay, so it's not being triggered, which is interesting. I swear this worked before when we did it. Speech, speak. I definitely believe there's a typo, but I don't quite get what it is because let's go back to the on end. Yeah, that works. All right, I'm gonna try to find a fresh example here, and then we can work back from that. Okay, on end. Yeah, that's what we already have. Speak. That's what I did. Are you and speak to? All right, I'm gonna start commenting things out until it works, but I don't really understand why it doesn't work. Anybody manage to debug it? We're gonna have to hear home a million times. I don't know why that would do anything.
Is it because you have the break?
Where? Oh, up here?
Yeah, I don't think it should.
Should matter, but what's weird to me is it gets all the way down to the speak me, I mean, it could be something weird about where this is. We could try putting this up here, see if it works up here. So if it doesn't work here, then we just have the wrong, somehow we have this configured wrong, but I don't really see where. So this definitely, I mean, I took this from an example that we already showed in class works.
Another thing.
Yeah.
It actually works when I use a global array to store all the utterance objects.
Really? That is super weird.
Another thing.
So you use a global, like a global variable up here?
Yeah.
Really?
Global array and store all the utterance objects.
Wait, so you just did this, or you mean something else?
No. I use the array to store all the utterance, all the use, to push it into that array.
But why, wait, there's no, at this point, I don't have anything else to push, right?
So just push the use.
What's that?
So each time you speak, push the new utterance object into that array, the global array.
Into the global, but why?
Maybe JavaScript tries to release the object if it's not stable.
But it,
Maybe.
really? It's gotta be something.
Another thing.
Okay, it did work outside of, so the exact same thing works here, but not here?
Another thing.
Oh, wait, it works again. What?
So you just have to make you oval.
Maybe, but why? Okay, anyway, if that, let's just keep, okay, it worked here, so let's keep putting it in deeper. There's something is weird is happening, but I don't know what that is at the moment. We'll try to maybe try to figure that out. Let's see if it, I think these are exactly the same, but you know, could be that they're different. Let's see.
Another thing.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that worked. So it could also be the console.log is odd because that's a
Another thing.
nope. It's really just how does it need to be? I don't get it. I don't get it. But okay. All right. Let's see if let's see if this this whole
Another thing. 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 Another thing.
As you'll see in the assignment, one of the first things I recommend you implement is a keyboard event handler for telling the speech synthesizer to shut up.
Another thing.
Escape is a very common. Okay. All right. So instead of another thing, let's see. Just make sure. Again, I don't know why that is. That is an interesting thing. Okay. So, oh, we didn't get to hear it.
Benefit to students, work required, structure of classes, office hours, accommodations for students with disabilities, statement of support for students' health and well-being, jvision@cs.cmu.edu. How have people with disabilities used it over time? How have people with disabilities used it over time? Products that have used it. Products that have used it. How has it been adopted or not in mainstream applications? How has it been adopted or not in mainstream applications? Introduction to the core technological component. Introduction to the core technological
Okay.
component.
All right. I don't know what it did after. It did read all the linked text, and then it probably fell off the end of the array or did something crazy. Cool. All right. So you will want to handle that case, right? So if it's longer, if you've basically gone longer than the array, you'd want to add something that says basically no more of those things, or the end of page or something. What else should we do? One thing you might just find nice to do is we can, when you speak something, you might want to give it focus. You might want to only do that if it's a focusable element. You may also want to, you can do, can we do scroll to? Scroll to, pretty sure that's true, but I'm just trying to say what's the jQuery. Maybe we don't even need jQuery. somewhere there's an element. Scroll to top, scroll to specific element. You don't have to do this. It's just hard to tell what's going on if you don't scroll to where the element is. Let's see, scroll to element. It's got to be, come on, Stack Overflow. Come on, animate. Okay, all right. Well, let's just let's copy and paste random Stack Overflow code. That's how most programming happens these days, anyway. All right, and now we just replace that with our element. I think we want to go a little faster, but okay. Let's see if that works. Okay.
Required structure of classes, office hours, accommodations for students with disabilities, statement of support for students' health and well-being, jmidu@cs.cmu.edu. How have people with disabilities used it over time?
Okay. Yeah, so there we go. We're kind of reading through. It's like scrolling through the things. We can almost see how this could become an actual screen reader, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and implement the. Oh, it's still going. Should really stop that somehow. But okay, I'm going to go ahead and implement the be quiet method. So we'll do key down and from here, I always forget what escape key, I think it's a key code, so just gonna look at it like this. So we'll get our event out here, see how we can figure out what the escape key is. Maybe. Why is that not working? Maybe it didn't save yet. Okay. No, all key, character code, no. So we'll look at the key code. Oh, and actually, wow, jQuery turns it into escape. That's so much more understandable. Used to have all these like key code things. All right, key, so we'll do if key equals escape. We really want to do two things, I think. One is we want to tell the speech synthesizer to stop, but we also kind of want to say to the potentially reading program, the thing that's reading, to not do that anymore. So how do we do that? I think what we're going to want to do is I think we're going to want to have some sort of state. We're going to want to say like, what is the state of reading this page? I don't know. So current state equals. Maybe we start out with stopped, right? And what else can we be doing so we can be reading forward? Let's put some comments. What else could we be doing? Reading. Maybe reading backward. Reading one forward. So if you're going through by like headings, you kind of hit H key. Kind of want to read that one, and then stop. Read one back, probably, right? So if we're going backwards, anything else we want to do? Yeah, is pause different than stopped? I guess stopped on okay, so stop usually means that you've kind of reset to the beginning. Probably, yeah, maybe we should just always say this as pause, because I feel like we very rarely actually reset to the beginning. But it seems like these are kind of the states we have, at least in the current view of the assignment screen reader world, where we are sometimes reading through, sometimes we're reading up, like backwards through, sometimes we are kind of finding something, reading it, and then waiting, finding something, reading it, waiting. And sometimes we're just doing nothing, right? So probably we want to when we hit the escape key, we're going to want to stop. We want to set to pause maybe. And so maybe there's a few different things we want to do. Maybe we want to do set to pause. So I'm going to make it a function as opposed to just defining it there. And then we can say function set to paused. I think there's a bunch of specific things we want to do here. So one is we want to change this state, but of course changing this variable by itself doesn't do anything. All right, so we'll change that to pause. We probably also want to tell the speech synthesizer to was it cancel? Do we remember that that's what it is? Cancel? I think it's that. Let's just see if that actually causes it to be quiet.
Hall, syllabus, benefit to students, work required, structure of classes, audit size, combination, statement, jaded, how, product.
All right, so it is turning it off, right? If I hit escape, I don't know if you can see that I'm hitting escape. It basically cuts off whatever the speech synthesizer is trying to say. But of course, it still keeps reading because we haven't done anything to tell it not to do that. So where could we incorporate this state information? Yeah, I think there's a few different places, right? So, speak me. Wait, where do we do in the find the next one? We could do it there, maybe. Although it's kind of weird. Why would we be calling find the next one? But maybe we would be. I mean, I think what's kind of happening, if you think about it from like when the events, how the events are connected to each other, is that when we say set to pause, we stop the speech synthesizer from saying something, but then what's happened is that it's triggered something that when we pause it, the reason it goes to the next thing is because there's a on end, and so us pausing us hitting cancel actually causes this event on end to trigger and then call the next one, right? So we could imagine just putting it, right here. We could say if state, current state, here's the state. Actually, what do we want to say? Do we want to say if not paused? Is that the right thing? So that's certainly part of it, right? But it seems like maybe there's more to it. So, okay. So if a sound ends and you're in a pause state, you clearly don't go on to the next one. I think that's probably pretty obvious. If you're in a reading state, if we're reading through the page, do we go on to the next one? Yeah. If we're reading backward, do we go on to the next one? Yeah, so we have to somehow change this so it's like previous. So maybe you just have the same, you could just copy and paste the function into another one that's previous instead of next. What about this if we're in read one forward? So this is kind of this weird future state where you would hit things like the Control H to go to the next heading. If we're doing that, do we want to say find the next one? Probably not, right? Because you've read or you are reading that heading, and now it's the only time that you'll advance is if the user with some sort of other event, like a keyboard event, tells you to keep going. And so then read one back, similar thing, right, where you wouldn't do it. So really we only want to advance here. We only want to call the next one if we're in the reading state, I think. So if we go way down here, current state equals reading, then we'll find the next one. And probably, else if current state equals reading back, probably do, find the previous one, which doesn't exist right now, but if it existed, we would do that. Yeah, okay. So, but no, nothing ever actually has put us into the reading state, which is probably bad. So why don't we figure out where to do that? So I guess reading state is started when we say to read. Kind of makes sense, read from the beginning. So current state equals reading. Yeah, okay, so current state equals reading. We're going to call, find the next one. Did I get everything, at least for these few items? Will it actually read, you think, now? Yeah, maybe? All right, let's see if, or not read, will it stop reading? Oh, wait. Okay, I hit escape. And it stopped. Yay. Cool, okay, that's good. Let's see. So these aren't, did someone tell me these aren't headings? That's so terrible. Oh, they are headings, sort of. But they're also spans within the headings, okay. So we could imagine implementing a reading one thing, right? So that would be basically the same as find the next one, except with some sort of qualifier on it, right? So it has to be an element that can speak, but it's got to also be the right tag name, right? It's got to be a heading tag, like an H1 through H6, or if it's a focusable element. I guess there's two ways you could do this, really. So if you want to find the next heading, one way would be to look through all the elements and decide yourself, what the next heading is, right? Another way would be to construct a new list, right? So you could construct a new list and then in that new list find the next heading. One of the things I did not know, but I have since learned, which is pretty interesting, is that you can, if we selected all the headings, so if we selected all the headings, so if we did something like, I forget how to do ORs, but we'll figure out how to do ORs. If we do all the H1s, then if I add, say, the current element, right? What's really cool about the list that jQuery will present to you, it's all the headings, but with the current element inserted in the right place. So like if you're currently like halfway through the page, what you would expect is the user, if you hit the heading tag for the next one, to go from wherever you are to the next heading from that point. And this might be a way to kind of get you that. So you would get the whole list of headings, and the current element would be inserted wherever it would in the reading order. And so anything after that, all the headings after that would be the ones that would be kind of next. All the ones that were before it would be the ones that would be the previous ones. So if we go to the assignment page here, I put that code in here for you. So this essentially allows you to construct a list of all the elements that appear after the current element. So if we select, let's just try this. All right, so I'm going to say, let's try next heading. Next heading. How about find next heading? Okay. Wow, there's a bunch of stuff here. Okay. It's basically just managing all of that for us. Well, actually, I guess this is, we could reuse this function if we want to say find all elms after, right? And these are the two things that tell you how this list is going to be constructed. So all is essentially whatever we want to be our selector for the list that we really care about, like the headings list. And then the start is however we are going to refer to the node that that we want to insert. So it's basically the current element node. So all right, let's go back to find next heading. I'm going to do find next heading so it's clear, and then we can go back and make it maybe more interesting. Okay, so all right, let's first look up. I should remember this, but jQuery or selector. I think just a comma. I think it's just a comma. So if we want to have all the headings, right, we're gonna yeah, okay. So there, it's just or to get an or. So basically, if we want H1 or H2 or H3, we'll just do this. So that's all of our headings. For some reason, they end at H6. Right. So we're going to select all the headings. So that's our all selector here. And then we have this current element that could be defined, but it's not always going to be defined, right? So if current element not equal to null, or actually if it is equal to null, let's redefine it. So if it's equal to null, that means that something, we basically haven't called anything yet. And so let's just start that at the beginning of the page, which would be the body. So we'll take current equal body. Okay. And so we're going to add, after we get our list, this is basically going to be our list of all the headings. We're going to add in our current element, and then this will give us, through a little bit of magic, wait, why is it there twice? This is super weird. Seems super weird that it's there twice. Oh yeah, what? Wait. What happened when I... This is... Okay, that is very weird. It got pasted in. This whole part is not, it's like repeated for some reason. Okay, so let's clean that up. So we have if, okay, so here I think is where it, yeah, maybe, I think. Did I do this a bunch of times? How did it? Oh, it got pasted into itself? That's super weird. Okay. All right. It's much simpler than it was, which is good. All right. So after should be, let's just see if we can, let's just console log this. So if we console log afters, what we should get is all the headings after the current position. And that should all be logged out. And let's just see if we can do that. So let's add something to call this. We already have our key down event handler. We'll add something if e.key equal h. So we're looking for the h key, and I think it's control key. So if the h key is pressed and the control key is pressed, so that's control h, that'll be our keyboard shortcut to say get the next heading. So we'll do find next heading, and I'm sure this will break in all kinds of fun ways, but at least we should be able to use this as a starting point. Oops, he already broke. 53. Let's see, 53. What did we do? Wait, it broke. Oh, I didn't even put function. That's not going to work. Oops. Okay, function. Find next heading. Ah. Okay. Okay, I told it to be quiet. All right, so I hit control H, oh, and current element isn't even defined because that's something we've been computing based on the current element index, which is the global variable. Okay, so let's, all right. So this will probably never be null, which is interesting. Okay, so yeah, okay, let's try it now. So we've figured out how to. Okay, got it. Okay, Control H. Start is not defined. Okay, so now we got to go. What did we do, or what did I do? Is if it is start. Okay, so we don't have a start. We have this current element, which I think can work. Let's see if that actually does work. All right, let's read. All right, I have to add a keyboard shortcut to start that reading too, so I don't have to do this every time. But all right, so there we have a list of headings that was printed out here, right? Okay, I mean that looks like probably all the headings, which is fine. Let's if we trust that the current element index is right, so the current element, we could maybe even just read the, we could just tell it to read, speak the first element of this afters array. So this is all the headings, so basically all the things that came after the current element. So we could, okay, start this, say be quiet. Oh no, was it? It's called something else, speak me? Oh, speak me, I see. All right, so I have to call speak me. Speak me. Much. Okay. Yeah, okay, so it's kind of hard to see, but it was all the way up here, and since we had already gotten past this first heading, the next heading was all the way down there, and so it scrolled to benefit to students and read out benefit to students because that was the first heading. Now it won't work now to hit Control H again, right? Because we didn't do anything to update the current element index. We didn't do anything that would then change what the current element is. So if I did it again, it would just hit benefit to students, right? But the idea would be you'd increment that up so that it would it would know, hey, the current element is this one, so I need to go to the next. All right, 8 minutes. What else do we need to cover? Let me go back to the assignment, make sure that everything is mostly covered. Okay, keeping track of state. Oh yeah, and so the other one other thing to keep track of is, so if we want to read, I think all of these elements now you can more or less do by tweaking kind of what we just wrote, right? So you know, instead of you know, going forward, you could go back through that list. Instead of, you know, doing headings, you could look for focusable elements. One handy trick for focusable elements is that jQuery has this selector that they kind of have just invented, which is it's a CSS selector. But if you do :focusable, you should be able to get all the elements that are focusable, so you don't have to construct that list on your own. The last thing though is if we have form elements. So if we have form elements and we want to kind of read what the user is typing as they're typing it, probably the way you would do that is make a selector for all the form elements. So input, text area, and put a key down event handler on that. There we go, and we can then see what the key is. So get just like we did before, get what the key is, and key to speak, say. And you probably want to check this a little bit because this could be, it's not just going to be all letters, right? It could be that the user is typing like, actually hits it like a tab key or something, and you might not want to speak that. But if you just want to speak like say the letters A to Z and and a space, then you could, let's see, let's make well, one way to test that, which you can kind of just copy if you want, is you can make a simple little regular expression that you want to do A to Z, 0 to 9, and space, and make it case insensitive, and then we test key to speak. So this is a little crazy, but it's basically saying this regular expression language to say A to Z, any letter A to Z, numbers 0 to 9, or a space. Oh, I don't know what space shows up as. It could show up as an actual space, or it could show up as the word space. Might want to check that. If it's one of those things, then you probably want to set to paused, right? Because if it's otherwise reading things, that would be kind of weird. Set to paused, and then speak me the key to speak, probably. All right, we don't have any form fields, so I'm going to add one down, maybe just the beginning of the page. So I'll make a little form field here. Okay. So if everything works, which it may not, if everything works, this should, not here, here. Okay, quiet. So you notice that one thing you may have noticed is it skipped over, it skipped over a lot of things because we're only reading links. I forgot that, right? Okay, so let's go here, and oh no, cannot read property top of undefined. What is that? Oh, right. Okay, so we made some assumptions. I made some assumptions. Why don't we would need to update this current element index or the current element, right? Because the speak me has all this stuff about having the element. Oh, but that's fine. We can actually tell it the element, right? So we can say speak. Oh, that's speaking an okay. All right. So that's speaking an element. We need to do a little bit more of. Maybe we just make a new function called speak, and that can just be the text that we're trying to speak, right? Maybe. Okay, so let's take this out, put it up here, and cut that text. I think. So instead of having it all there, we're just going to say speak within here, speak. All right, so speak. Maybe that all still will work. We'll see. Okay, so that kind of all worked. Let's see if it. Well, we didn't tell it to now do this. Let's change speak me to speak. Maybe. And all right. Didn't do space, so clearly space does something else. But now it's kind of reading through as you type, right? And you could imagine doing kind of things like it's just saying the same A if I say a big A or little a. Shift with an F. All right, so yeah, there's a question. Yawn. No, that's fine. All right, so that's pretty much the end, right? I'm gonna post this, the video for this, and the file here that you can use to get started. And yeah, if you have any questions, I have office hours today, this afternoon. 225 407 South Craig, or send me an email. Thanks.